All right. I want to welcome everyone to today's session hosted by Analytics Sage. And with us here is, a very prominent data analyst in the crypto space who currently works as a data analyst with our network. And many of us know our network as one of the, top research on-chain analysis firm, in the crypto space. So much without much conversation, I would like to bring on board Mr. Brandy. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Mr. Brandy.
Hi, thanks for the intro, and thanks for the invitation. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
You're welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. We're glad to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so today we are having a conversation around, navigating career growth in the on-chain analytics space. All right, and that is the topic that Mr. Brandy will be facilitating today. So you have the floor, Mr. Brandy. Thank you.
Sure. So then maybe it makes sense to start with an intro about myself. I guess to start with my education and experience. So I got a bachelor's in government. And immediately after that, I started working as a research analyst for a government agency. Nothing blockchain related, nothing related to on-chain analytics at that time. And I was there for around 4 years. But I eventually realized that that really wasn't for me. I didn't want to work, I guess, in the public sector, at least in that position. So I eventually transitioned into the real estate and mortgage industry, and I had maybe 2 or 3 roles. During that time, I was there for maybe around 3 or 4 years in that industry. I also worked as a loan officer for a bit. But even after that, I really wasn't satisfied with my career trajectory, and I just really wanted to get involved with the blockchain industry directly. So I would say around like 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to study a master's program full time, and the program required proficiency in a programming language. So I chose Python. And I would say I have around 2 years of experience with Python and a little bit over a year and a half with SQL. I can also briefly get into how I got into crypto. In around 2016, a friend mentioned it to a group of us. Initially, we didn't understand, but I think maybe a week later, I did my own research and I ended up buying some Litecoin. I did sell it like maybe a week later, but in 2017, I realized that my investment, if I held it, would have been worth a lot more. So after that, I started taking the space, the industry a lot more seriously. And then also the concept of like stateless money really made sense to me. At that time, I was reading a lot of economic literature, specifically one economist called F.A. Hayek. He was an Austrian school economist, free markets guy. He wrote the book, The Road to Serfdom. And essentially, he kind of warns about government mismanage of economic institutions, central banks in particular. And I just saw a lot of parallels between what he was talking about in his books and his writings, and what was going on in macroeconomic environment, as well as what's going on in crypto, and I guess the goals and the visions of this on-chain ecosystem. So yeah, like I said before, I was trying to figure out exactly how to get involved in the industry, how I could best put my skills and knowledge to use, and I decided to focus on-chain analytics, leveraging Python and SQL. So I can also get a little bit into what I'm doing now. I think they mentioned that I'm currently working with our network. I joined in July earlier this year to do a few things, doing the visualizations that you see on the newsletter, ad hoc projects like Dune dashboards. I think in August we recently did an issue and published our Dune dashboard in conjunction with Nebra, analyzing a lot of the ZKP projects in the space. Let's see, and I'm also doing internal data analytics for our network, so essentially business intelligence. I'm really doing anything data related for the company right now. Other than that, I've also been participating in a few hackathons. Most recently, I participated in StarkHack, which is the StarkNet ecosystem hackathon, SuperHack, which is the Optimism ecosystem hackathon, as well as ETH Online. And I was actually a semi-finalist for StarkHack and SuperHack. Other than that, I've also been working on a few personal projects under this Optimizer Finance brand and website that I have. Focusing on the intersection of machine learning and blockchain technology. I guess some of the products that I've worked on, they're really evolutions of the projects I started on during those hackathons. So I guess most prominently, I worked on like a robo-advisor, which is essentially AI portfolio management for like on-chain portfolios. Most recently worked on a domain valuation model. So it estimates the value of Web 2 and Web 3 domains. So anything like .eth, .op, .base, as well as .com, .finance, .xyz. And then, most recently, I'm working on this new kind of project I'm terming like an elastic currency manager. It's a little bit complicated, but essentially it's training a model on on-chain data to control the supply of an algorithmic stablecoin. So not sure if there was anything else specifically you wanted me to touch on.
All right. Thank you very much for that intro and background. Yes. So we're going to have an open session where others would have to ask you question, possibly how did you navigate your career? And I feel your experience is one of an interesting one, being that you transitioned, okay, from one industry to another industry, and then you find yourself now in Web3. So that might also mirror, a lot of data analysts on this call, right? And I believe that they also have questions which everyone will be allowed to ask that question. Yeah, but my question to you is this: what would you say is a blueprint for navigating one's career, as an on-chain analyst in the crypto space? Like, what's the blueprint based on your
Sure.
experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that a blueprint for getting into like the on-chain analytics, I think it's pretty similar to getting into like a data analytics role in other industries. Really learning the basics of Python, SQL. Also having an idea of where you want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years. And I also think that the industry, just data analytics in general, can be. Oh, I'm sorry about that. There's a pretty strong thunderstorm going on right now. But where was I? So I was saying, which completely lost my train of thought. Thunder was pretty loud. Yeah, so I would say that with the industry, data analytics being pretty, some people say oversaturated in general. Early on, understanding what niche you want to get into. So yeah, I know that when I initially started learning Python and SQL, I was also like, okay, I want to use these technologies to build my portfolio analyzing blockchain data. I understood that niche was, there are like not a lot of competent on-chain data analysts. So I thought, okay, if I, start from, step one, with this goal in mind, with this vision in mind, understanding the nuances and I guess the intricacies and the unique aspects of blockchain data, that I'll be in a really good space, going ahead, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. So again, I would say, learning the basics of the technologies you want to use, and then also, understanding where you want to be in the near future. And I think it's best to specialize in something, specialize in a specific type of data, and a data analysis is really going to help you in the long run.
Thank you so much for that feedback. One thing I picked in what you've shared here is understanding your niche,
Hmm.
right? Understanding your niche, and you know, I believe that, like you said, the data industry seems saturated. However, when we look closely, there are still very much room in the blockchain space, as
Hmm.
we don't have that much quality data experts yet in the space. So I think understanding your niche comes in handy to any newbie who is looking to start a career as an on-chain data analyst. I would like to give opportunity to our audience who have a question or two to ask our guests on the call. So if you have a question, you can just raise up your hand with, you know, on the with the icon on the Google Meet call. So you can just click on that and to raise up your hand if you have a question. And it's also important that you ask Mr. Brand a question based on some of the challenges you've encountered in your journey, because I believe a large majority of people on this call are just starting their journey, either a year in or 9 months in or 7 months in, and you are still trying to find a balance. So in this industry, right, uh, things seems to be moving very fast, right? Information seems to be um, coming in at speed, right? Now,
Hmm.
for you as an analyst, how do you filter the noise? How do you filter the noise and stay focused on what is important? How do you decide that?
That's actually a really good question. So I guess going back to finding like a niche. So you have the data industry, data analytics as a whole, and then you have like a subset of that would be on-chain analytics, blockchain analytics, and then I would say even finding a niche of that subset. I would say DeFi is really interesting to me. Some other people are more interested in NFTs, other people in like other aspects, and people are really interested in Bitcoin analytics. Again, even going a little bit deeper in that subset, finding what finding my own niche, what interests me, and then going from there, essentially just looking and searching for what interests me personally. Like, okay, this new fractional, stablecoin protocol just came out. Let me see if there are any dashboards or any queries on Dune or Flipside. Okay, there aren't. Maybe I should go ahead and create this dashboard. And then going from there, that even opens opportunity for like retroactive funding from these protocols and from these projects. So you're definitely right. The space moves super quickly. There's a lot of change. Things are always moving. So I would say focusing on what interests you, and filtering out all of that noise really does help with organizing and understanding what's going on.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. I have a question here.
Hmm.
While I believe that our audience are preparing their question, if you have a question and you don't want to speak, you can always drop it on the chat box. Also, you can always raise up your hand so you can be called to speak. All right, my question goes thus. Now, from your journey into the on-chain space, on-chain analytics space, right?
Mhm.
What would you say as the mistakes that every newbie should avoid? What would you see as the mistake that every newbie should avoid?
Mm, that's a that's a really good question too. And I'm immediately thinking that when I initially started, I was maybe a bit hesitant to, just reach out to projects and projects that interest me, and to say like, hey, I think there's an opportunity for us to analyze some of your data. Here is like, a dashboard or two that I've already made up. I think that we can get some pretty interesting insights. Just making those like those cold messages, those cold calls, on Twitter, Telegram, whatever it may be. Wow, sorry about that. That storm is very strong. Yeah, putting yourself out there, putting your work out there. I sometimes I might be a perfectionist, so I may be working on this really cool project, but if in my head it's not done, or it's not like satisfactory, I'm not gonna like share it on Twitter, even though it could potentially get like 100 retweets, and like people from that project reaching out to me, and trying to work with me. So I would say again, just building in public, I think, is another thing that people say. Building in public, putting yourself out there. Even if you send a private message to the founder of some project you're interested in, even if they don't reach out, hey, it was only a 2-minute message, 2 minutes to write up that message and send it out. But if they do get back to you, that is potential job opportunity right there. So I would just say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, build in public. And I think that with the shortage of like competent analysts in the space, that eventually something's going to click, something's going to connect.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. Okay, so if you have any question from the audience, please do well to signify so that you can be given the opportunity to ask a question. All right, anyone from our audience, if you have a question, please do well to seize this opportunity to ask your question. Okay, so while we're waiting for our audience, if anyone has any question, I would just like to ask you. Okay,
Hmm.
so why starting out? How did you communicate your skill? You mentioned that you reached out. Okay, but I'm sure that a lot of persons are also reaching out, but
Hmm.
it looks like it's not working for them. So they must have had other people like you are sharing with us now. Oh, I reached out, to projects, and then I got this gig, I got that gig, and I landed my job. Very interesting story. But they might have also been reaching out, but probably reaching out the wrong way. So how do you communicate? How do you reach out to these projects?
Sure. So I think that's another really good question, and I would say that um, being involved with the communities. I think there are a lot of good on-chain analyst communities that people maybe aren't taking advantage of. I actually found my position with our network through a Telegram community for on-chain analysts. So I would say, um, you know, being part of that community, if you reach out to someone else that's in that community, they're already going to have more trust. They're already going to be more open and receptive to what you're saying. So I think just getting involved with those types of communities, those organizations, is gonna help you immensely. And I would say 99% of the time, it's free. And then I would say another thing is that I think that my portfolio projects were maybe a bit different than what other people were working up. Oh. I was when I'm working on a project. I'm thinking, okay, like has this already been done before? If this has been done before, how can I do it differently? How can I stand out with this project? So I would say like I maybe, on my portfolio, I had like one or two projects. I think for my resume, I had like just one project. And, I would say it was a really, really good, really interesting project that made me stand out from other people. So I would say, just spending that time to think of a really, unique idea or unique insight that you want to look into, um, is going to help you stand out when making those cold messages.
Well, I think that's a very unique tip that you just shared. Like your portfolio stands out. It's not like the regular dashboards or tweets that people see. And I think this is something that all our audience should take note of, right? So build something that is unique, okay, that doesn't look like the regular, and you would always stand out. You would always stand out. So let me give this an opportunity to Uchena to ask his question. So Uchena, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful presentations. I am I am in the academics. I'm a statistician by profession.
Hmm.
I teach statistics, and I may say I'm no longer a youth by age, but at heart I'm a youth. I want to ask this question: if there will be an advice or a help that one can give to me so that I can force myself into this blockchain, on-chain, and data analytics. I have good background in Python and SQL, and I do R too. I do programming as well. But I want to force myself in. But because of my profession, I'm finding it difficult. Is there anything that you can tell me or you can help me unravel so that I can fall into this on-chain blockchain data analytics? I've tried to use something on Dune, but I need help. I need push. I need that push. Thank you very much.
Sure, that's a good question, and I'll say just, off the top of my head, the experience and the technologies that you've mentioned are, are very impressive, I would say, especially for the space. Having good projects and, knowing the technology is good, but then having that experience is really going to, push you, help you stand out compared to other candidates. So I would say, since you already have that Python and R experience, a Dune dashboard is fine, but maybe even like a proprietary dashboard written in Python might help you stand out, because I'm sure a lot of analysts, are familiar with Flipside and Dune. It's pretty simple and easy to create a dashboard, and the data is right there. It lives on the website. So I 100% understand why you might want to fill your portfolio with those types of dashboards, but then you'll also need to think that a lot of other people are also sharing these Dune and Flipside dashboards. And even if the data and the insights and the graphs are different, I just feel like being on the website, it makes a lot of what the dashboards look similar. And there are some limitations with Dune and with Flipside. So I think what I like to do is I'll do my initial data exploration on Flipside or Dune, get those queries, and then I'll either hook up an API or download a CSV, and then do like the further analysis, the visualizations, and create the dashboard in Python. So that allows for a lot more customizability. And then if you're ever interested in getting into like machine learning, data science, I would say like even working up like a linear regression model or a logistic regression classifier. They may sound like, if you're not familiar, they may sound like a pretty hard things to get to get started with, but I would say that they're pretty simple tools and pretty simple like technologies that you can incorporate that you can't do on Dune. You can't do that on Flipside, but you can do it on your own proprietary Python dashboard. So you can have everything you have on Dune, plus these like extra like cool things that you can do only in Python, like some of the data science and machine learning technologies and methods.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for that.
Yeah,
Of course.
thank you very much, Brandy. Mr. Uchina, I want to be sure you've gotten your answer.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So just to add to it, I don't know if you are in a community analytics stage. So it's a community of on-chain analysts, and that is one of the reasons why we are building this community as well. To have people like yourself in the community to get help. And as a community, we host webinars like we are currently on. We hosted one last week. We are having one next week. There's already one prepared for November. So if you stay in a community that speaks the same language that you aspire to be, it's just more like if you want to pick up interest in something, plant yourself in the midst of those who discuss that thing over and over again. And I believe that when you stay with us in analytics stage, you get that interest, because everybody is all speaking on-chain analysis. We don't give room for meme coin sharing or anything. What we do is analysis and all. So thank you very much, Mr. Oche. I hope you take advantage of the community. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah.
Thank you. You want to say something, Brandy?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
Do you want to say something?
No, that was really all I had for that question.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Ikechukwu George, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, Sir Braden, Sir Apostle of Finance. I hope I'm clear enough.
Yeah, you're clear now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sir Braden, I would like to thank you for all you've said so far. Quite the interesting class, though. I would like to ask, many of us here are quite new to data analytics and on-chain analytics. Many of us are really new to it, like me, for example. And we've been hearing different stories. Some are saying the important part is to understand the coding aspect. Some are saying the important part is to understand the analytics aspect. So I, as a noob, I'm kind of confused. I want to know, what is the real thing we should be considering important to learn and understand in on-chain analytics? Could you give us a breakdown of what really matters in on-chain analytics? Thank you.
Sure, I think that's a really good question, and I think we talk about a few different aspects, and I think it can get a little confusing. So I would say, at least from my point of view, understanding the at least the basics of the technologies, and that would go to like identifying a technology stack. So my stack is Python SQL. So I spent the time to become really proficient at Python and SQL. And I think it's just good to know that in general, because you can apply it outside of data analysis as well. But I would say knowing at least those technologies, or if you're going to do an R, SQL, whichever other stack, learning that stack very well. And then I think you mentioned, like, is it important to understand, like, what to analyze? That is important. But I think once you understand the Python SQL or the R SQL, there are already so many resources out there that can point you in the right direction and help you understand how to analyze this data, that I think that's a lot quicker to pick up. And there are already so many examples that really just becoming proficient in those technologies at the very least, becoming proficient in SQL is going to be the most important, because if you don't know SQL, if you don't know Python, if you don't know R, you really can't do the work in this space. So I would just say, probably the most important is learning, at least one of those technologies, SQL, Python, R, so that you are able to start building, because you need to know at least one of those to start building in general. Knowing, some of the other skills like what to analyze, how to analyze is nice, but it's a lot quicker to pick up, and you can't build solely off of knowing that stuff, if that makes sense.
All right. George, are you there? I believe your question has been answered. All right. Because of our time, we'll take Okoyemi and then round up. Okoyemi, please, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Apostle of Finance, and thank you very much, Mr. Brandy, for your time and all. My question is, I just want to go. I'm very happy that you are here tonight, and I'm happy that I'm also here, because I would have asked this question last week. I wasn't able to ask it because I'm a bit into machine learning. I've been in machine learning for some time now. That's what I was actually focusing on. So, and when I hear about do analytics, I feel like, okay, it's still data related. Why don't I just move in? But I've been meaning to ask, trying to find out how machine learning, why is the intersection between machine learning and to have applied to blockchain data, just not just like ordinary Web2 data, or you see data online with no CSV from Kaggle, you practice with it, all this kind of data. Now we are talking about blockchain data, because this is my first time dealing with blockchain anyway, doing things related to blockchain. So I'm trying to find out. I think you have already mentioned one of it a bit, but you did not really go, because that's nobody has a question. But now I'm asking the question: how does machine learning come into play? That is one. Second, what I want to ask is, what is the extra that you will tell us we need be coming to this space, that okay, everybody's doing this, everybody's doing that, this is the extra that you would like us to look into? Or you already there, you are in this space and you're already working, you have different things you are working with, the new trend that is coming on board, the opportunity that you like some people to tap into, that if you can still tap into these things coming on board. That is a question I would like to ask. And thirdly is, how do we build our portfolio? Is it only through dashboard? And okay, as a machine learning, now I want to check my portfolio. I say my GitHub, I have my codes there, my repository. I can quickly send you the link and check it through. How do we do such in being blockchain analyst? Thank you very much, sir.
Sure. So that's all great questions. I'll start with number one. So then intersection of machine learning, blockchain, data, how is this all interconnecting? So I mentioned in my intro that I'm also doing some projects under Optimizer Finance, my sort of personal brand and domain for all of that. And I mentioned that kind of focused on the intersection of machine learning and blockchain, which requires blockchain data. So I'm sure, as for any machine learning model, you need to train it. You need to train it on data. So when we're in the blockchain space, we're training these machine learning models, algorithms with on-chain data. And then going from there, I think the opportunity for machine learning is that in blockchain, the goal is for everything to be autonomous, autonomous finance, smart contracts, things just trigger without a human having to press a button. But there are still limitations to that, I would say, especially with DAOs. I think there's opportunity for improvements, especially as it relates to DAO financial management. Right now, it's really slow. You kind of have to wait a week or two for a proposal to pass. There's still a lot of manual interaction and manual requirements for a lot of these DAO operations. So my first project was actually training a machine learning model to manage a DAO's portfolio. So this would allow essentially a DAO to just say, okay, we have this risk tolerance. This is our, we only want a portfolio with these assets. You send those parameters to the machine learning model, and then the model is, a Python script, and it manages the wallet address of the DAO, and it essentially just autonomously manages the finances. Ideally it'll have a higher return compared to traditional management, which is just people waiting a week or two for these proposals. So I would just say that with the goal and the mission of blockchain, and with everything already being natively digital, natively digital assets, everything is controlled by code, that the machine learning aspect interconnects very well with that goal. And there's still a whole lot of opportunity for these machine learning models to be developed, trained, and deployed on blockchain layer ones, on protocols, on DAOs. So hope that answers your question, but I would say there's a pretty broad intersection between machine learning and blockchain, and I think that blockchain is specifically primed, or in a good position to implement machine learning. So then, to get your second question, what are some extra things that an analyst can do to stand out? I think I mentioned before, but I guess, well, one example was a lot of analysts, they work on a Dune dashboard, Flipside dashboard. That's totally fine. Especially if you mainly know SQL and you don't know as much Python or R or potentially JavaScript. But I would say, that extra would be creating that proprietary dashboard that's totally customizable. That extra also is even though my position with our network is as a data analyst, my portfolio projects were a lot of machine learning projects. So that shows that, yeah, I'm proficient, competent with basic data analysis, but I can go above and beyond that, and I can also train these models using my data analyst skills, and then also understanding Python or R is also going to, I guess, open more doors in the future. So you may be hired as a data analyst, but a year later you're the head data scientist, or you're even working on back end operations. Since I've been learning a lot of Python, I've actually been building my own apps, my own data apps, my own web apps as well, using Python as the back end. So I think that extra would just be getting really proficient in one of these programming languages. That's really going to help you stand out, and that's going to give you that extra push compared to some of these other candidates that may come in. And then I think your last question was how to build a portfolio, or maybe the best way to showcase your work. So I think that kind of coincides with what I just mentioned, with building more proprietary things. Not having to rely on Dune or Flipside. You're able to build these applications, without having to rely on these platforms, and then showcasing that portfolio. Having your code on GitHub is nice, but ultimately, if the recruiter isn't technical, they're going to say, okay, this is nice, but where can I see the actual results, the actual product? So I would say building some of those proprietary things, maybe even dabbling in machine learning or data science. I know machine learning may sound, for some people, on the call may sound a little, you know, a little much to get into, but there are some really basic aspects like linear regression, that, you know, learning Python, there are a whole lot of libraries that are going to make it a whole lot more simple, and you don't need to learn the math or anything else, you know, surrounding it. So I hope that's answered your questions, or if you want me to clarify anything, I'd be glad to.
Thank you very much. That actually answers my questions. And if I might add one, just how do we connect with you, sir? Maybe LinkedIn, because you've made mention of what I'm really interested in, because you mentioned of deployment and how using like Streamlit, all this kind of stuff to make the help Streamlit. Yes, I just started learning Streamlit yesterday. I started my course yesterday, so I think if I can connect with somebody like you said, we should do like a code message, reaching out to people that can be of help. I think that one can actually go a long way, sir. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah. Just send me a message on Twitter, and then we can, you know, change info, and we can go from there.
All right.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you so much, Brandy, for that robust response. I've dropped his Twitter link on the chat box, so please go right and go to Twitter and give him a follow, and then connect with him from there. Thank you so much. And what you just explained with regards to going above and beyond, I think I experienced it this year. So I though it looked like what was I doing? Because prior to then I was always pushing out dashboards, you know, and all on Flipside. I started with Dune and then focus on Flipside. And over time I just begin to want more. Like I feel there is more to just putting out dashboards. And then I didn't like the fact that I was doing almost the same thing large majority of my network was doing. So what makes me stand out as you know, as a personal brand in this space? So, you know, I delved into Python. I think I did something on Monte Carlo simulation, and I posted it. I think it's one of the first time that my post went to, I think not like the first time, but my post went to 1K view in a very short while. You know, shows that it is something very not so common, and a lot of persons were interested in, okay, what was the logic behind it, and a lot of stuff like that. So, and then I delved into Python. So the rate at which I push out dashboard went down, and the rate at which I got more private gigs, right, to work on something more deep, like maybe carrying out a quantitative research on a particular ecosystem. And so I begin to work on those kind of projects instead of just building dashboards and all. And I think that's a very insightful one. And for me personally, I now see more positive energy from you, so which I'll be doubling down on my efforts, going above and beyond. Thank you so much for that. And we are calling it a wrap. You know, Mr. Brandy has actually given us a very rich information with regards to how to navigate your career. He talked about understanding your niche as a newbie, getting to figure out what area do you want to focus on, and not just being everywhere, because when you have information overload, you can be confused. So when you have a niche, like he gave, like give us an example of himself, he focused on DeFi, right? So other persons might have an interest, you know, in NFTs and other stuff like that. And also, you know, he talked about learning the basics, okay, of where you want to be, okay, and then specialize. Don't be everywhere. Right? Specialize. One of the things he mentioned, okay. Then he talked about putting in the work, right? Putting in the work. So sometimes I see some persons put out dashboards, and I just look at it that this is not standing out, right? It doesn't show that you've actually done a thorough research. It just shows that you've just checked out other person's metrics and then you replicate the same thing. So nothing is interesting about your dashboard. Nothing is interesting about your page. So he talked about putting in the work, having to be sure that when this dashboard goes out, everybody wants to see it. Okay. Then he talked about building unique portfolio projects. Like one of the things, he did, he built unique portfolio projects. He did not just build any project that is out there. He looks for something that he knows that, okay, people really want to read, people are finding answers to. All right. And lastly, he talked about building proprietary projects, which is one of the building above and beyond, conversation where you can go beyond just SQL, you can dive into Python, R, machine learning, and all. So thank you so much. I just said I should give you a wrap of what Mr. Brandy has shared. Thank you so much for joining us. Personally, I'm very grateful. On behalf of Analytics Sage, we are very grateful. So Analytics Sage is an edutech platform that is focused on promoting on-chain analysis within the vast majority of people in Africa and beyond. All right. But I believe that information, learning are somewhat very scarce in this part of the world, and we only have meme coins and the gems everywhere who are doing what they don't understand. So that is one of the reasons why Analytics Sage is being inspired, so that we get to have more persons who are inclined with on-chain data. So thank you so much, Mr. Brandy, for honoring our invitation. Before we round up, we want you to give us your last word. Okay, what would be your last word for all newbies on this call?
I would say that, especially if you're just starting out, it might be really overwhelming. There are a lot of different niches you can get into. There are a lot of different projects, a lot of different, just things going on. So, I would say that, at least with me, I just took some time to sketch out okay, where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Okay, to get there, what technologies do I need to learn? And, essentially, I think once you can outline those things, the journey becomes a lot clearer. And, at least with me, I would say I have a year of experience as a data analyst. But I would say I've already had a good amount of opportunities, and I think that was because I was focused in where I wanted to be. Not just data analytics generally, not even just on-chain analytics generally. Specifically getting into this niche and developing my portfolio around this niche, and eventually, even though it's a year, I'm already a specialist, already pretty experienced in this niche, in what I'm trying to build. So I would just say having that plan and kind of sketching things out is going to help immensely in the long term.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. The summary of what he just said now is build your own career roadmap. Thank you so much, Mr. Brandy. Please let's appreciate Mr. Brandy, with our emojis. Let's drop our emojis of appreciation. Let's thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. And we have come to the end of this session. One important thing I need you to do for us, which is everyone, please do well to follow us on Analytics Sage on Twitter. I've dropped the link. Likewise, follow Mr. Brandy, follow Analytics Sage, and stay glued to our next session. And most interestingly, our next session would be with one of Flipside experts, and he will be talking about quant analysis with Flipside, and how to use data wrapper. So data wrapper. So you have to be there on the 23rd of October, which is next week. All right. So see you there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Brandy. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.